In our last episode, we went through the best free agent signings through the first wave of free agency this NFL offseason. Now we're going to get into the worst signings, the most questionable ones. We've got 8 that are particularly concerning. And remember, we do it based upon the contract value to the player and the percentage of your salary cap. We figure, look through the whole concept to figure out what is the best and the worst signing. So we're going to take a look at the 8 that are probably the most questionable signings. But a reminder, if you want to catch any of our videos, remember to like and follow for more like this, as well as some of the others that we've put together for you. So like and follow if you would, if you like what we're doing here. Worst contracts. Let's start from 8 down to the worst. Javonte Williams, a running back for the Cowboys, is a very questionable signing. Look, it's a one-year deal. It's worth less than $5 million. It's such a small percentage of the cap. There's no long-term commitment from the team. In fact, if the player were to be released at any point, it's no big loss. However, you have to put everything in context. The Cowboys misread, as they normally do, the running back market this offseason. They ended up with a lesser player at a more expensive cost. Dallas expected Rico Dowdell, their leading rusher, to command a contract of $6 million or more per year. So they let him go, and they signed, in my opinion, a lesser player in Javonte Williams for as I mentioned, $3.5 million. Well, Dowdell signed for 1 year, $2.5 million with the Panthers. So they spent $1 million more and got a lesser player. It's just the failure to understand the lack of ability to evaluate and understand the value of players on the market is one of the major problems of the Dallas Cowboys over the past 30 years. Before letting the market develop, they jumped in and signed Williams on this one-year deal. Williams is younger than Dowdell, but he was one of the league's least efficient runners last year, and his explosiveness is gone after the major injury in 2022. Williams is the type of player that you can sign after the NFL draft or closer to camp. The fact that they paid him on day one of free agency shows, again, that they're misevaluating players on the pro level in terms of free agency. How about Dante Jackson of the Chargers? 2 years, $13 million. If you would just look at the raw film and stats, it sure seems like the Chargers got a steal with Jackson. He had a career-high 5 interceptions in 24, recorded 8 pass deflections. However, several of his interceptions were really what I would call a little fluky. He's one of the more inefficient cornerbacks when breaking down film. He allowed 8.2 yards per target in 24, which is similar to his 8.3 yards in 23 with the Panthers. The Steelers did their best to hide him in their defense, but because he doesn't play in the slot, he was easily picked on by better offenses. He's now on his 3rd team in 3 seasons, and there's a reason why he keeps getting let go. He's one of the worst man coverage corners in the league, and as he ages, he continues to get worse. You don't get faster as you get older, folks. His game always has relied on his overwhelming speed, and now that he's lost a good bit of it, he's not nearly as productive. The Chargers didn't pay a ton of money, but they also didn't get a very good player either. How about Darius Slay of the Steelers? Another corner. 1 year, $10 million, fully guaranteed. They had a big hole at cornerback with Dante Jackson leaving in free agency. So it was no surprise they were aggressive in targeting Slay. However, Slay is 34, and he's been best in a zone-heavy scheme. Pittsburgh plays more man coverage under Terrell Austin. And it's fair to wonder how he's going to fit at this stage of his career. They're going to have to play more zone to get more effective play out of him. It's also interesting that Pittsburgh didn't pursue a long-term option at corner. Slay only signed for 1 year, and it's hard to imagine he'll be back in 26 for his age 35 season. They had to spend the cash to get a long-term for Joey Porter Jr., so they opted for a stopgap player. That's usually not a good move for a team in this situation in their the fact that they're in that Super Bowl window and they're trying to get to that next step. It's not the best move at all. How about Aaron Banks, guard for the Packers? 4 years, $77 million, $27 million guaranteed. It was a surprise to see the Packers get in the guard market, especially after selecting Jordan Morgan in the first round in the 24 draft. However, that's what happened, and they paid a ton to Banks. A full-time starter for the Niners during the last 3 seasons. He was a good player in San Francisco, but now he's being paid as a top 10 guard. Remember, if you want Alexis, you pay Alexis price. If you want a Camry, pay a Camry price. But, man, if you're paying Alexis price for a Camry or even a Corolla, that's what you're doing here. It's a bit rich for a player that has never garnered Pro Bowl consideration. Maybe they feel like he'll be better in their scheme, but, boy, this is not a $19 million a year player, and they paid him that. Talona Hufnaga, the safety for the Broncos, 3 years, $45 million, $20 million guaranteed. Safeties were paid left and right in free agency. So it's not surprising that he got a pretty good bag here. After all, he was an all-pro selection during the 22 season after recording 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 sacks. However, since that season, he's played just 17 games, missing times with serious injuries, including a torn ACL. He's not been durable, and his play style certainly impacts that. Denver wanted to get a more dynamic safety, and Hufnaga is a playmaker. He can be exposed in coverage and is not a very technically sound player. For someone who has had as many serious injuries as he's had during his career, $20 million guaranteed is the biggest reason why I don't like this deal. It's a lot of cash for an injury-prone guy. They're betting on his health to improve as he ages. Not a good bet at all, but they're hoping he can stay on the field. Larry Ogabudu, the defensive tackle for the Bills. The Steelers released him on Tuesday despite having a ton of cap space, which is not a good sign for a player. It didn't take long to find his next home. He signed with the Bills early on Wednesday. He's been a declining player for years. He's always been a poor run defender. He can be an adequate pass rusher at times, but even that part of his game has fallen off after recording just 6 sacks in the past 3 seasons. They're paying him to be a starter, or the Bills, and that's a mistake at this point of his career. He's a rotational tackle who's more like a 4th guy who should get paid near the veteran minimum. Is an overpay, $8 million guarantees for a rotational player. Harold Landry, despite the great last name, the edge rusher that the Patriots signed, 3 years, $43.5 million. $26 million guaranteed. Look, they needed to spend money in free agency, did the Patriots. And they got Milton Williams and Colton Davis and Robert Spillane and Morgan Moses. Reasonable deals for good players. However, Harold Landry has been a declining player for a few years, and he was recently released by the Titans. Yet the Patriots gave him $26 million guaranteed, $43.5 million. He's never been an elite pass rusher. He's a solid run defender with below average size, but now the Patriots are paying him like an elite edge rusher, and we know he's never going to be that. He does reunite with Mike Vrabel, but this is one of what I call the blind spot hires. Somebody that he's familiar with. Look, it's fine to bring a player like this, but at the fraction of the cost, you just have to make an offer that makes sense, and he comes or he waits, but what they paid him is a way overpay here. And then finally, Javon Kinlaw, the Commanders, signing the defensive tackle to 3 years, $45 million, $30 million guaranteed. It was the most shocking contract. He missed a lot of time thus far in the NFL. He's played just 24 games in his first 3 years. He has played all 17 games in each of the last 2 seasons, so hopefully he's putting that behind him. He's become a decent pass rusher, totaling 8 sacks in the last 2 seasons. He's a poor run defender, and he should be relied upon as a backup, just like we've discussed, a rotational player. Washington released Jonathan Allen this offseason and replaced him with Kinlaw, and that's a big-time downgrade. Kinlaw's significantly younger, but he's just not the same caliber of player. Now, Dan Quinn, Joe Witt, they hope that they're going to be able to deploy him better than he's been used San Francisco or the Jets, but clearly overpaid that much for a rotational player. Those are the moves that concern me the most, with not just the player, but the contract that they signed him for. Really important to understand the concept of free agency. And yes, you have to fill needs, but it has to make fiscal sense in the salary cap era. Reminder again to like and follow for more videos like this right here. Appreciate you joining us.